if I'm comfortable with who I am, I know who I am and I love who I am, then I will do what I want and I won't worry about what people around me are saying. But when I'm constantly thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to fit in? If I wear this, will I fit in? What will that person say? You are no longer being yourself. You are leaning into the conditioning of society. When you know who you are, you get to define what success and happiness is. When you don't know who you are, society will define that for you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Thoughtonomy podcast, where we want you to think for yourself in a world that wants to do it for you. I'm sitting here in the Tim Studios in Hillcrest with the lovely Jane Linley-Thomas. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
How cool is the setup?
Jeepers, I'm well impressed.
Very amazing,
cool.
eh?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people know who Jane Linley-Thomas is. I mean, you've spent years on East Coast radio. We're not really going to talk about that today. But why don't you just for a couple of seconds just tell people, what are you about?
Sure. I am married to a lovely, wonderful human being. We've been together for almost 20 years. The love of my life. I have 3 children. I have a 14-year-old son and soon to be 12-year-old twins. And I am a proudly KZN girl. I am fun-loving, outgoing, people-facing. How long do we have? I could go on for a while.
Well, I think something that is in essence you is we're sitting here now just off screen, or so to speak, and you said to me, I'm so glad I dressed up because of the cameras. Can I tell you something? I've never seen you not dressed up. Is this your brand? Is this something that it's just Jane, right?
Look, one of my biggest fears in life is dying in uncool clothing. I say to my kids all the time, like, make sure that when I die and cross over the Rainbow Bridge, I'm wearing good clothing.
Prep me up before.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but for me, getting dressed every day is a real highlight in my day because it is an expression of how I feel. So from the get-go, I get to set the tone for myself for my day, and it really excites me. I mean, one of my most overwhelming things in my life is when I go away and I have to pack for like 2 or 3 days because I don't know how I'm going to feel. So it's almost like packing for my mood.
So it's a feeling thing. You wake up in the morning and go, I'm feeling leopardy today.
100%, like red legs today.
Yeah.
It's all about red legs and red shoes. I don't know what that means, but that's how I feel. So for me, packing is very, very stressful. It's not about, clothes have never been a practical thing for me. It's been an expression thing for me.
You're an artist though, aren't you?
Well,
hey,
I can't
DJ.
draw, I can't paint, I can't thread a needle, I can't cook, I burn water,
Yeah.
I burn rice.
But I can't not look at you and help but think that there's an artistic, creative flair side to you. It's a big part of your personality.
I think I'm a free person.
Yeah?
And I think with being free comes artistry, right?
Yeah. Creativity.
Yeah, and I'm not scared of what people think. So I think in that comes a freedom to I don't worry what people think because they expect anything. Therefore, I have freedom to do anything.
But that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a lovely way to live.
And most people don't live like that.
Oh, Grant, if I had a rand for every time a woman stops me and says, I wish I could wear what you wear. And I just feel so sad.
What do you say to them?
Why? And then it's, I could never. And I'm like, but why could you never? And it's always this like, I could never. And I can't understand that because somewhere along the way, that person has become so suppressed and so made to feel small. And then it will be kind of like my husband or then it's deflected because then there's that judgment. Yeah. And I find it very sad. You know, like, for example, last week I was in a room full of women and I said, how many of you arrived at this function this morning and tried on more than one outfit before you landed in that place where you felt okay? And everyone laughed because, hey ho, we all know that space. Yeah. And how many of you looked at yourself this morning in the mirror and said, I feel good to be me? And maybe 10% of the room, half mass, put their hands up. And a woman came to me in the break and she said to me, I so wanted to put my hand up, but I felt embarrassed.
Yeah.
I felt embarrassed to say that I felt good. And it really makes me sad that when we want to fight for our voice, we're embarrassed to hold on to it because we've been made to feel shameful of that.
Yeah. And I know you haven't read the book yet, and I'm not going to shame you for that. We'll talk about it.
From today, I shall read it.
I'm giving you this copy
to
read.
Yay.
But what you'll see in the book is how I talk about how our behavior as human beings is defined by our conditioning and our emotions. And conditioning is what you're talking about right now. Mm. And there's something about us as human beings where if we are seen to be loving ourselves, seen to be, I'm not saying we love ourselves, but if we give off the impression that I love myself, then, oh, you're arrogant. When loving yourself fundamentally is the most important aspect of being a human being. Because exactly what you're saying right now, if I'm comfortable with who I am, I know who I am and I love who I am, then I will do what I want and I won't worry about what people around me are saying. But when I'm constantly thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to fit in? If I wear this, will I fit in? What will that person say? What will this person say? You are no longer being yourself. You are leaning into the conditioning of society. And in the book, my most favorite quote, when you know who you are, you get to define what success and happiness is. When you don't know who you are, society will define that for you.
Sitting in the passenger seat of your life.
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah.
Riding shotgun all the way through.
Yeah.
No. And so many people do. They'd rather ride shotgun and then take control and sit behind the wheel.
Yeah. So that's what I say. I'm like, so a lot of people go, okay, but now tell me how. So if Jane's just opened up my eyes to the fact that I can be whoever I want to be, how do I do it? And I always say the first thing is coming back to oneself. It's just getting rid of all the conditioning, all the things that you've heard over your life, all the beliefs that you've had repeated and repeated and repeated to the point where you now believe it to be true, whether it is or isn't.
Yeah.
Unlearning that and going back to who am I, fundamentally who am I? Who do I want to be? Like what makes me happy? And what makes me feel alive, and what will make me feel amazing when I get up and get dressed in the morning. And I'll do it my way.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Well, I actually jumped out of my chair after I was speaking about that looking in the mirror thing. And I said, how about we reposition it? That when you look at yourself in the mirror, you say to yourself, I am so grateful to this body for carrying me through a pandemic. And the whole room, I mean, look at my goosebumps, the whole room just goes quiet. Thank you to this body for carrying me through a pandemic that killed people around me. Instead of going to war with it every day, I hate my waist, I hate my arms, I hate my chin, I hate my this, I hate my that. Imagine stewing in self-hatred 24 hours a day. It is exhausting. And as women, we have so much access to that, haven't we? Because society for eons and eons and eons has shown us what we should look like. But I feel quite positive that I have a daughter that I'm now role modeling, and she can be anyone she wants. You know, she lives in a world where there are so many beautiful, different types of people that she could be.
Yeah. And look, imagine what it's like being a young girl growing up now, the exposure to what's coming at you on Instagram and TikTok. And I mean, it's just, there is a image out there of what the perfect body and what the perfect woman looks like, the perfect model. I mean, it's incredible when you look at what's getting fed. And I've even heard, you know, my own children talking about this. But now your daughter has you as her major role model. And a lot of our conditioning comes from our parents.
100%.
What have you noticed about her in terms of her growth and development?
Look,
from that perspective?
I've got to go back and say, as much as my daughter is being bombarded by your waist should be this big and that big and whatever, as a little Jane, the only person that I could see as someone to look like was the one magazine at the checkout at the supermarket. So it was also a very small pool. So we've now got the extreme where you can be 100 different things. Whereas for me as a young, bigger child, I didn't have anyone that I could relate to that I looked like. So it's always been complicated. Yeah. So I always go back to, for me as her mum who struggles on the road, I have to work at my relationship with myself. Because if I'm working at my relationship with myself, then I can help her work with her relationship with herself. So there are good days and bad days. And the other day she was saying to me, do you think I should go on a diet? She's 12. And I was like, why? Where does that thought process come from? So it's about extrapolating and getting down to that core. But for me as her mom, I need to role model that I am comfortable with my flaws and all, as hard as that may be. Yeah. And if that means getting into a bikini, as hard as that bloody well is, on the weekends and at the beach, and it's hard because I have a flabby stomach. I've had 3 kids. It's very hard. And I come from that space of wanting to hide under a towel, run into the surf, run out, hide under the towel. What am I role modeling for that child? That you must hide all the time.
Well, here's the flip side. I don't know if you know this. I documented. I grew up as a fat kid. So in my years at Virginia Primary School, I was probably the fattest kid in the school. to the point where the school photographer in my standard 5, which is now grade 7 year, he came through the photographs and he's always chirping and making jokes, and he called me a 4-wheel drive gorilla. Of course, you can imagine all the friends. That was my nickname for years to follow. But my parents at that age put me on quite an extreme milkshake diet. And I had a model of a sister, a rake, skinny sister, who could eat whatever she wants. And I'll always remember sitting at home being stuck to this diet of eating milkshakes. And all I wanted was to just go into the kitchen and take a packet of knickknacks or something. But I remember my dad, it was like a 10-week process, and the goal was to lose 10 kilos. Now, with all good intentions, okay?
Of course.
There's good intentions behind it. I don't blame my parents for that. But to this day, they regret putting me on that diet. But my dad would go every week. Every week I lost a kilo. He would take a kilo of margarine and put it out on the kitchen counter and go, "My boy, that's how much you've lost this week."
Bless him.
To show me. And I look back on that and I go, I know the intention was good, but I will never ask my kids to go on a diet. It has to come from, if it comes from them, it's different. But I would never make a comment to one of my kids about weight, because I just know the impact that it had on me growing up.
Yeah.
And it stays with you for years.
Does it? I mean, I remember as well as a young kid, like always being the biggest child, and hard for me because I swam really well. So I swam butterfly. I was in the swimming team. I was always first in the pool, but then I had to get out on the other side. That for me was the most.
Yeah.
I can still remember that anxiety. It used to make me physically wretch. I was so nervous about that. I would end up in the sanatorium for days after co-ed galas. Boys were going to see me walk around the swimming pool. Like, that was so stressful for me. It was the worst. Even talking about it, I can feel my hands getting all like clammy.
You won't know this. I was a Natal primary school swimmer in grade 3, grade 4. I gave up swimming because I used to get so nervous. I used to choke in the water in my butterfly stroke. And I'm now going, I didn't know it at the time, but maybe there was a part of that as well.
Hard, eh?
Yeah.
So for me, as a parent, I have to work hard at role modeling that we can do hard things.
Yeah.
And that the relationship that we are in with ourselves is the longest relationship we are ever going to be in.
Yeah.
And just to pour into that. No one teaches us that we are in a relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. And you so correctly said, if you get the relationship right with yourself, it infiltrates down. You're inspiring your kids to do the same. But I just think for so many parents out there, we all want our kids to achieve, and we all want the perfect kids. And you actually have the perfect kids. The fact that you have kids, you have perfect kids. And the role as a parent and a guide and a mentor is to love unconditionally. And if your kids have that unconditional love, it's powerful.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And it's so sad when we see parents trying to control and dictate. And I guess they're doing it with good intentions.
Yeah.
But I've always just tried to maintain that. It's hard watching my little boy when I was a rugby player and he doesn't want to play rugby or he's not good at rugby. So what? He has talents all over the place. And they're all unique little souls. And we just need to love unconditionally and let them step into who they're meant to be.
100%. And there's no perfect parent and there's no perfect kid. And I always love to say in a room full of mums in particular that you have the most beautiful opportunities in your flawed parenting journey to role model that we do not want children that are perfect. We want flawed children because then it gives them access to having a life of peaks and troughs. Yeah. Imagine living on a pedestal. Imagine living to this expectation that mom and dad expect me to get A's and make the first team and live on this like high plane all the time. Because that house of cards, it will come down. So it's living this life of today was a hard day, tomorrow I try again.
And that's the reality of life, is that we're probably going to experience a lot of pain. There's always going to be pain in life. There's always pain. I mean, something as simple as discipline in the workplace. I always say you can choose your pain. So you can have the short-term pain now of having to go through the discipline of starting a diet, starting a fitness program, starting to build your business, prospecting, or you can leave it. You can choose not to have that pain of discipline, but then be prepared to have the long-term pain of regret.
Yeah.
So which pain do you want?
Yeah.
The pain now or the pain later when you haven't done what you should have done?
My dad's, one of my favorite quotes is, the more you bleed in practice, the less you bleed in war.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And we thought we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
You're going to have to rein us in.
But let's go back. So I know we met in your garage. Sounds dodge, but it's not. Jane's got the most amazing setup in her garage at home with all these clothes, and she sells these clothes, and it's something that you started as a passion project. But we had a quick chat, and then at the time I was running the Durban Entrepreneurs Club, and I asked you to come and speak. And she said, on one condition, can I set up the stage? Can I set up the stage for me? And I'm so glad you did that, because up till that point, we'd never experienced that before. What do you remember most about that night?
Gosh. I remember being so nervous, and I don't know why, because I mean, it wasn't like it was a first talking gig. I'd been doing it for a very long time. I just remember going into the bathroom and splashing water on my face.
Really?
And I was really nervous and like pep talking myself, like looking in the mirror, like being like, you can do this.
Is this the fear of public speaking?
No, I think it was probably because it was the first time my mum and dad had seen me speak after a very, very long time. So it was kind of like that, what felt like that 360 moment for me.
Okay.
I also had a mentor in the room, and it just felt like a big moment for me.
Okay.
I don't know. I just remember being incredibly overrun by emotion and having to keep a lid on it.
Well, it was not noticed. It was not noticeable.
Really?
Not at all. So you got to remember from that. So this is perspective now, right? We all see the world differently. So there you are, really struggling, gathering yourself, nerves like you can't believe, to come and talk to probably about 120, 150 entrepreneurs sitting in the room. And there we are going, oh my gosh, Jane Linley-Thomas from East Coast Radio. This perception, your brand is big, right? So it's quite amazing that was going on behind the scenes. But for those who are listening or watching, Jane set up the screen. She set up the setting with all her feathers and her chairs and her props and her. It was amazing. And I remember I went and found like a magical, and you obviously knew what you were doing. I went and found a magical fairy forest landscape background for the screen.
It was amazing.
And then Jane said, all I want to ask is, can we have
glow sticks.
Those glow sticks?
So
and
amazing.
as Jane walked into the music, all the audience was waving glow sticks. It was so you.
No, but all the lights went off
Yeah.
and Beyonce played and all the glow sticks went up. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is even just thinking about it, my eyes full with tears.
Did it calm you down? Did it make you more nervous? Though?
I don't know. I can't remember. You know, it's almost like it's fast forwarding, but it's quick, and it was quite like dreamy.
It
just,
was the most spectacular entrance that
Yeah,
I've ever
no,
had at that club.
it really was.
And let me tell you, when I put an event on, one of the things that I've learned is music's so powerful.
Yeah.
I'll never
that song was powerful though.
Oh.
Shoof.
It was that song, I Was Here.
Yeah.
Right? But whenever we did one of those events, I'd always start with a video, those motivational videos with like loud music in there, so it kind of like gets everyone's attention. But I always make sure that when someone walks up onto stage, there's music in the background, so you don't have this like slow clap.
Yes, yes.
So music's so impactful, but that was just spectacular. I'll never forget that.
Thank you for that. I don't think I've ever had an intro like that since.
Yeah.
So thanks.
And then so much changed after that.
Yeah.
So much changed, and you had changes at East Coast Radio, and I remember us chatting again after that. And this is what I love about this opportunity now is there was a quote that I heard, and I actually shared it with my team this morning on our meeting. Everyone's jealous of your success. So everyone looks at you and can be jealous of your success, but nobody's jealous of the road that it took you to get there. I love it. I think it's amazing. Like we always look at people who are doing well. And we go, oh gosh, I wish. But do you really? Do you really wish you had the journey? Because as long as you're prepared for the journey, because there's hard work, there's discipline, there's pain, there's hardship. There's many times along the road where you go, can I do this? So not a lot of people are really jealous about that. But that second time that I met you after the Entrepreneurs Club, you were going through some big changes with East Coast Radio, and you really were starting again.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking about it now, I'm like, gosh, I want to cry. It's just been such a wild ride. I think leading up to my resignation, I mean, I think a lot of people think that I was brave having twins, and I always laugh at that because I was like, well, what was I supposed to do? Ching, chang, chang, leave one behind. Like I was never going to leave one of my children behind. That was never a choice. Yeah. However, leaving East Coast was very much a choice and the bravest thing I've ever done. But I just got to a space where I knew I'd come and done what I needed to do, and it was time to go. I'd reached 20 years, and I knew I had to go, but I was scared. I was trapped in fear.
But it's all you knew.
It was all I knew, absolutely. But I became paralyzed. I became paralyzed with the fear of the unknown. And making that leap was just so hard. It was just so hard. So I knew it was coming. And it got to a space where I started to really start to take strain, a lot of strain. So I'd work very hard on multiple businesses during the week.
Just explain to the people listening, I know your backstory. So when you were going from East Coast Radio, what were some of the other avenues that you were considering business-wise?
So, I mean, I've always been really, anything people-facing is my heart. You know, I work in purpose and I work in community building. So that kind of pivots and goes into different avenues. So I had the Rejoice collection, which is a pre-loved fashion space in memory of my late Grand Joyce, which was started in a retail space, not so much anymore. It's kind of morphed into a play space for women in particular, corporate spaces, styling for eventing, public speaking and emceeing. I'm also now involved in a startup tech company, which is all around corporate communication, well-being, and it's got a really big, strong EQ backbone, which is very, very exciting. Cool. I'm involved in the West Town Precinct, doing content curation for West Town Shangweni. Okay. Which is really exciting as well. Beautiful plans there. I work alongside the DHS brand, which is very cool. My dad is a 71-year-old old boy, and both my sons are attending the school. So I have a lot of different hats on. So at that stage, the tech startup company wasn't on my radar. The DHS side wasn't. So it was really just the Jane Linley-Thomas brand and people-facing opportunities. But leading up to that, it was just this unhappiness that I was, kind as can, of course, running, doing the things during the week, and then tired on weekends. Tired on weekends and not being with my family on weekends. So on a Saturday and Sunday, when my alarm would go off on my phone to get out of the pool or start getting ready to move towards my car at 12:30, 1 o'clock, I started to cry. And by the time I got to East Coast to turn that microphone on at 2 every Saturday and Sunday afternoon until 6 p.m., I was living a double life.
So you could feel you weren't doing what you wanted to do.
There was a disconnect.
Yeah.
Because the person that you were hearing on the radio wasn't the person that had arrived there. And that felt very disingenuous to me. Because what I was speaking about in my facilitation work during the week was back yourself, be courageous, be authentic.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing that. And that felt like I was letting myself down and I was letting people down.
Out of interest, did anyone at East Coast Radio ever notice that?
No. I think you get quite good at it. And because I'd done it for so long and because I loved it, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I was being fake, because when I turned that microphone on, I will always love people.
Yeah.
Will always love community. But I was leaving my community.
Yeah.
I was either leaving my family in the boardroom at East Coast while I was working as a mother of 3 who hadn't seen my family all week, because you know what it's like as a parent. You whip all week, and then on the weekend you restore and recoup and recover. And I didn't have that time. And then Monday morning would come again and everyone would go off and I'd be by myself again. So actually I dipped into a depression. I dipped into this very dark space where I was sitting like waving from the top, but I was lonely.
But that's why I asked, did anyone notice it? Because
my family knew. Only.
Emotion is such a strong driver of behavior, and sometimes we just going through the motions, but sadness that has led to depression is strong. And it's hard to lift yourself and be consistently authentic when you have this sadness that you're carrying.
No, Mike knew. I mean, sometimes it was so bad he'd have to drive me to work.
Really?
I'd cry in the back seat of the car. And he'd literally deliver me to the studio. And of course I would do my work, because what a blessing, what a privilege. And I would connect with my listeners. I mean, Grant, it got to such a stage that after 20 years, I would know who I was speaking to on the other side of the phone within 3 seconds of hearing the tone of that voice. Yeah. They were my people. They will forever be my people. But it got to a stage where I was choosing them over my people. My people.
Yeah.
And I had...
Who comes first? Priorities, right?
My family.
Yeah.
So I got to the stage where I knew I had to leave. But then it was like, oh gosh, the financial, all the beautiful opportunities that come with this job, the leaving of this beautiful community, went into this like deep spiral by myself, because now you're also kind of fronting on the one side. You're Jane Linley-Thomas from East Coast Radio that's always effervescent and positive and vibing, but deep down inside you're sad and lonely and scared. So you're fronting. And we went away for a weekend And I was in such a bad state. I mean, I hadn't had a sleep on an afternoon couch on the weekend for 2 years. I was run down. I was broken. I just remember sleeping and waking up and weeping. And sleeping and weeping, literally sleeping and weeping. And on the Sunday, we went for a walk as a family, and we found this waterfall, and we sat in a circle, and we did a gratitude waterfall, like throwing into the river and being grateful for things. And we started like walking up this like embankment, and I started to really like almost like sob, like, you know, when you're ugly, like sob. And my daughter looked at me and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because I have to leave, but I'm scared." And she said to me, "Mom, I've heard you cry at night, and I've heard you cry and ask the universe or God to open a door for you. What happens if He's opened a door and you're sitting in the waiting room?"
Wow.
I resigned the next day.
Wow.
And when I tell that story, it's in that moment that I realized I had to role model for myself, because I am in a relationship with myself.
Looking back, had there been a door open that you were just ignoring or possibly not seeing, and it took your little girl to say that to you?
Of course.
Yeah.
So many beautiful doors open.
Because you get into this rolling routine of just accepting that this is my lot.
When you're only looking at the picture in one dimension, that's all you see.
Yeah. So was that the point? I was going to ask you, I had a question in my brain going, I need to come in with a question. What was the trigger point? What was the point that caught you out of that cycle? Was it your daughter's
That
words?
was it. Standing in Hilton in the middle of the bush. That was it.
Yeah.
I wrote the email that evening.
How astute. How old was she?
It was last year.
Yeah.
It's a year since I resigned now, this month.
Mom, I hear you sitting in the room at night asking the universe and asking God to present
open a
you
door.
with something. What if He's already opened the door?
But you're
and
sitting in the waiting room.
Standing in the waiting room. That's incredible. Man. For a good, young girl to say that to you.
And how many of us sit in the waiting room of our lives just waiting because we're scared?
Yeah.
We're scared. But you get to a stage where what happens if it works?
So here's the thing. You mentioned the word reframe. You said you looked at the mirror and you said, I'd rather
Yes.
reframe and go, thank this body
Yes.
for carrying me through COVID.
Yes.
So reframing is something that is really important, that helps us to think slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because I might be looking at my life situation one way, but all it takes is a reframe from my daughter to go, but Mom, what if you were just, the door's there, but you're just sitting in. So the what if question is so powerful.
Mm.
So if anyone's out there listening right now going, but I'm also stuck in this rolling treadmill of unhappiness or tiredness or dissatisfaction with my current purpose, with what I'm doing with my job or my life, what do you say to them? What is the first step?
It goes back to relationship with self. I can't tell you how many times I've woken up to go to the alert night or checked an email, and there is an email saying, "Thank you for giving me the courage to leave him. Thank you for giving me the courage to circulate my CV. Thank you for giving me," and it's that courage. It's that leaning on yourself.
What if it works out?
What if it works out?
Our natural thinking is negative as human beings. This negativity bias is so strong. We always seek out the negative, and I know it comes from fear. But what if we reframed it? Like, what if every possibility had a positive outcome?
Yeah.
Would you do it then?
Yeah. I think one of the greatest gifts that the work with Paul Bushell from Kindness Can has given me is this line, which is just, it's changed my life, is that realizing that your brain is designed to keep you alive and not make you happy. I'm going to say it again. Your brain is designed to keep you alive, not make you happy.
Or is to keep you safe, yeah.
So its job is not to make you happy. That's your job.
Yeah.
So if you understand that you are continuously up against the don't do this, don't do that, ooh, that might fail, don't put your hand up in that meeting because people might laugh, ooh, you might not land that. Mm-hmm. Once you understand that, I often go, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm going to still do that though.
Yeah.
Oh, I got this.
And also understanding that uncomfortable feeling of whether it's fear or caution, it's there for a reason. And as you said, your unconscious mind has a primary directive to keep you safe. That's why when you go to bed at night and you fall asleep, you don't have to logically remind yourself, breathe in, breathe out. It takes care of it for you.
Yeah.
It keeps you alive. It keeps you safe. So when we approach a comfort zone, the reframe there is, what if this feeling is not to hold me back? What if
Keep me
this feeling
safe.
is actually telling me that if I just step through it,
Yeah.
there's something amazing on the other side,
Yeah.
and quite often there is.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I always tell people is when you're approaching a decision that's making you fearful, there's three things, right? What is the absolute worst thing that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really looked at it, what is the worst? Like, are you going to die? Like anything short of am I going to die is I'll manage, right? So unless it's life-threatening to your life, don't do it. But what is the worst outcome? What is the best outcome? And then what is the most likely outcome? The worst case scenario quite often doesn't play out.
Yeah.
It's a figment of our imagination based on our fear.
Mm-hmm.
The most likely scenario generally plays out. And it's just about looking at it and going, well, I'm so focused on this worst possible outcome, and this percentage of that happening is so small. What if it was the best possible outcome? And also, what if I never try? How will my life be if I don't ever try? Will I get to 20, 30 years down the line and go, that was one of the biggest regrets of my life? Because by then you can't do anything about it. So this having courage is so important. And unfortunately, as human beings, we don't have a lot of courage naturally. We've almost got to force it because of this comfort zone. And that's the thinking, is to go, well, if I'm comfortable with this feeling of discomfort, I must just understand that it's just protecting me. But it's also the first sign to go, I'm actually close to something quite special.
Yeah. I'm going to say it again, but if you're in a great relationship with yourself, even if you don't land it, you got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't leave yourself.
So I always feel really comfortable that even if I can't land it or if it fails miserably, I still get to return back to me, back to home, back to me, which doesn't make me feel so like alone out there. It's like, that's a nice soothe. It's a nice feeling.
And again, when you know who you are, you love who you are.
Yeah.
It's not a arrogant thing.
No.
It's actually, I think it's a confidence thing. So if I know and like who I am, and I know what I want for my life, then I'm going to pursue it and move in that direction without worrying about what anybody else thinks about me. It's quite empowering.
I don't know where this idea of self-love became such an egotistical slant. It should be such a lovely thing to say that you love. Even saying it out now sounds weird. Like, I love myself.
Well,
because it sounds so ego-driven, doesn't it?
Most human beings sit at a value level where we are self-sacrificial people pleasers. There's different value levels, and it's value level 4, and it comes from a time of when people converged under religion, and there was something bigger than myself, and I'm having to give, more than I gain. But a lot of us spend a lot of our life in this value level 4 where we are inherent people pleasers, and there's a self-sacrificial element where if I put myself first, I'm going against what everybody expects of me, which is right back to where we started this conversation. But I honestly believe when you place yourself first, there's an energy management side to this. And if I look after myself first, I've got so much more to give others.
Hundreds.
If I give to everybody else all the time, I'm going to be left with a small amount of energy for myself at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, whatever it may be. But if I'm responsible for topping up that energy, in other words, doing the things that fulfill me, giving myself time to make sure that my energy is replenished, whether it's a walk on the beach, sitting with my dogs, going to visit my horses, spending time with family, going to the gym, exercise, watching the sunrise every morning.
Yeah.
If we can give a little bit to ourselves first every single day, or however much you can manage, you're ensuring that you are keeping your energy at a level where you have so much more to give to everybody else.
Yeah. There's no way you can be a loving person to other people if you're not operating from a place of love for yourself. Because how many times have you said something unkind or acted in an unkind way to anyone around you because you have felt tight in your jeans, as an example? Or something's happened inside of you and you're feeling yuck, because thoughts lead to feelings and feelings lead to behavior, right? So now that feeling's got to go somewhere. So if you're not looking after this all the time, it's going to play out in different spaces.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't agree with you more.
Absolutely. And, again, I always say, I never sit here and preach. I struggle with this as much as everybody. I'm a human being. We're human beings. This is what human beings struggle with. We all have a negativity bias. We have a confirmation bias. Like, if I'm thinking something negatively and then I see something that confirms it, well, then I must be right.
Yeah.
And then I transcend into the spiral of negativity, which affects you emotionally, and you have a really shitty day.
Yeah.
It's all of us. But it's being able to catch it and go, whoa, hang on a second. Do I know that for sure, or am I assuming so much? Because when you assume stuff, you're sending yourself down another whole story.
Yeah. I also think it's sometimes harder that when we know so much, we should know better. Like I'm meant to be a kindness facilitator.
And I'm meant to be a coach.
Right? So I'm meant to be kind all the time, not when I'm effing and blinding at home or kicking a chair. That's not very kind, is it?
Jane,
no, it's not.
You can sit here and you can help somebody else with their perspective. I can sit here and help you with your perspective. But do you think I can help myself with my perspective? No, when you're caught in the middle of it, it's different.
No,
There's emotion, right?
Yeah.
Funny.
People are people.
We're strange.
We are very
but
strange.
Anyway, I'm just saying to everybody at home, it's like we're trying to help, we're trying to deliver a message, but we also struggle with this ourselves.
100%. Every day. Got to work on it though.
Yeah.
Like any other relationship. Remember when you first fell in love and you would phone that person, like, you put the phone down, I love you. We just had to put a little bit of that into that relationship.
Period.
Yeah, but put it into that relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So worth it. You're so worth it.
Absolutely. And it's probably the one thing that holds most people back in business that I see. We always talk about belief, confidence in yourself, confidence in your product. I know confidence, but if you're in sales, you are the product. If you can't sell yourself, you're not going to sell the product. People always go, you've got to believe in the product, and you've got to believe in yourself. And if you have limiting thoughts and negative beliefs about yourself and your ability, it's going to play out because it's going to hold you back in terms of your behavior. And you're going to sit there wondering why you can't do this or you can't. You actually can. But we've got to reframe the thought process that goes through our mind of why you can't do this.
Yeah. I think it's also important to surround yourself with people and energy and input that is good for you. Because I think there's so much noise out there.
You're talking about environment.
Yeah. There's so much. You've got to seek a good space. If you're battling with confidence, don't go onto Instagram and see how everyone else is doing it, because that's just going to make you feel really terrible about yourself. That is the highlight reel. Go home to the people that love you and build in a space that's nourishing. And, I never went to work ever to be celebrated or rah-rahed. Do you know what I mean? It was like home was those are my people. I went to work to love on people. So you must be very particular about where you go and draw your energy and why are you drawing from areas that you're drawing from. Do you know what I mean? So be very particular about where you draw your influence from, your energy from, your fuel from. It's an important one.
Yeah. And again, I go back and I say we didn't know where this conversation was going to go. These are completely unscripted podcasts.
Completely.
And we've gone down an avenue that sits quite comfortably in the book. There's 4 elements to assisting people with this concept of thoughtonomy, and the first one I talk about is falling in love with yourself. Again, so it's tied in so nicely, and thank you for drawing that conversation out. But it really is probably one of the most important aspects of, firstly, understanding that if I've spent a lifetime of being conditioned unconsciously, whether it's from my parents, my school, my mentors, or people, even my circle of friends, the way I think is impacting the way I feel about myself and who I am in this world. And if that is the basis for how I feel about who I am and where I place myself in this world, is it possible that your thinking's wrong? Because your thinking and the thoughts that you're carrying and the beliefs that you hold onto could quite possibly have come from somebody else in your childhood, in your past. So it's a process of stepping back and going, I have to get back to who I am. Who is this person? What does this person want? What does this person fundamentally believe? So it's about unlearning all the conditioning, understanding where it came from, and then going, right, I get to live this life.
Yeah.
And I think you're on that journey.
It's a beautiful journey, hey?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Yeah.
I'm blessed every day. I'm so grateful for the hard times. I'm so grateful for the good times. Every day I just kneel at the bounty of just being eternally, eternally grateful.
So I think there's a lot of people who will be listening to this who are hugely inspired by what you've been saying today. And there might be one person, there might be a couple of people out there who are sitting there going, wow, thank you, like you've really started something here. Just leave us with one little bit of advice. Talk to that person right now who's going, okay, Jane, phew, this is scary. You've done this. What about that time when you were scared? What pushed you through?
Look, the 9 months that followed, or the 12 months that followed after my resignation, will be a talk and a book on its own, because both the darkest and scariest and most exhilarating time of my life. And at my lowest, when I wasn't able to land the work that I wanted. And I kept saying, I didn't do all of this to make sideways moves. I was doing this to make forward moves. And it got dark. When I say it got dark, it started knocking my confidence. It started to knock everything inside of me. And it actually changed me. I didn't like what it was doing to me. The way I was thinking and approaching each day, I didn't really recognize who I was. It was a very murky space. And I phoned my dad and he said, what can I do for you? And I just said, just keep telling me what you tell me every day. And he just said to me, Jane, it's the darkest before the dawn. Just keep going. So just keep going. You know, for me, it's always been about working in purpose. Finding purpose is one of the greatest gifts for me that I have ever been blessed with, is to find why I'm here. And I know it's to love on community and to build community. So for me, it was always very clear. But purpose has really been the light in my life. So to find purpose and to just work methodically and hard, self-belief, and work hard with an open heart for the right reasons. And when you hit that skid pan of darkness, just hold tight, because nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever, not the good and not the bad.
It's the law of rhythm. Ups and downs, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
The sun is followed by the darkness, and you have to understand that whatever cycle or season you're going through, it doesn't stay like that forever.
Feels like it though, hey?
Yes, I know, but it will if you don't make decisions for yourself.
100%.
So you said there, it's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
You can decide to sit in the darkness forever.
Yeah.
And you also can decide to step out of it.
Yeah.
And again, having people around you, having support around you when you do decide to step out of the darkness is important. But also understanding that you are a unique, special individual and you have a purpose here.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting in the darkness, you're not fulfilling that.
Yeah, and you know what, Grant? You've got one life. You know, you deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
You really, really deserve to live a life that is meaningful and connected. And it's not just about paying bills and losing weight. Really, there's more to life than that.
Doesn't seem like it, eh?
No, really. I mean, really. I mean, when I look at like room full of like bedraggled women and they just look so tired, and it's just about the humdrum of disciplining and schooling kids and paying bills. I'm like, it's not meant to be like this. There's meant to be joy and playfulness.
Even if you just start with like, write a list of 5 things that you've always wanted to do and you haven't done.
100%.
If you do one of them a year,
Hundreds.
just start doing what makes you feel most alive.
I mean, the entry point for conversations is like, do you still dream for yourself? Because a lot of women I know dream for their kids. And they dream for their husband's business ventures, or they dream for their community projects. But are you dreaming for you? They look at me like, what? What are you talking about?
But again, and I know now we're about to go into another whole conversation. This is conditioning. No, this is conditioning. Right? Where the woman is almost taught over time that your role is a support one. The man's role is a providing one. That's why when a man loses his job or when a man struggles to provide, he takes an ego knock. Why? Because his conditioning is it's your job to provide. And there are a lot of men out there who are very insecure when their wife is earning more money than them.
But this is a whole nother conversation.
I know.
I mean, I want to come back for this conversation.
Yeah.
Because when we did that men's mental health campaign together, the stories that came out of that, because we speak about the woman being able to do everything, but as a loving wife to a man, a wonderful man, and a beautiful father and 2 gorgeous sons, I'm so passionate about holding space for the man.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to be said for the man in this day and age where the woman can do it all, right? She used to play support, but now she can do it all.
And also the woman who chooses not to have children.
Oh,
can you imagine
you're opening cans here.
Can you imagine
the
challenge there? Because there's this picture of what a woman is supposed to do: support her husband, keep her kids happy, keep her husband, bear children. Does that mean a woman who chooses not to have children is of any less value?
No.
No.
There's a lot to be
So
said.
there's a lot of conditioning.
Can I come back?
Yes, we'll have to do it again. All
Can I
right.
come back?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
It's been
me.
amazing, and you're always welcome back. And
Oh,
I think we
thank
will
you.
definitely have to do another one.
Yeah.
But
lots
thanks
of
for
love.
sharing. I think you're going to help a lot of people today
I hope
with your
so.
journey.
Yay.
I think you will. And we'll always follow each other's journeys. And
Always.
keep
I love
rooting
you to
for
bits.
each other.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
so
Jane.
much.
Thanks, everybody. If you haven't got a copy of the book, please visit thoughtonomybook.co.za. Everything that we've spoken about today is documented in the book. In fact, I think it's chapter 5 or chapter 6 on just learning to go back and love who you are and love yourself. It's not a bad thing. And it's the foundation. Love is the foundation for everything that we've been speaking about on this podcast. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.